Good evening, everyone, and welcome to CTDOT's virtual public info meeting for Project 0123-0069, replacement of bridge number 04426 in Scotland. We will begin this session shortly. Please use the Q&A function to submit your feedback, comments, and/or questions for the presenter.
Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the virtual public informational meeting for state project number 123-69, replacement of bridge number 04426 on Gager Hill Road over Merrick Brook in the town of Scotland. To view closed captions and subtitles in Zoom, you can click on the Show Captions button on the bottom of the toolbar. Select the speaking language and then pick the speaking language you want to listen to from the list show. Closed captioning will also be available on YouTube after the event. My name is Mark Burns, and I'm the supervising engineer for the local bridge program for the department, and this is my contact information. The goals for tonight's meeting, or the overview for tonight's meeting, will be to interact with the project team, to explain the federal local bridge programs design managed by state, or DMS program, we'll have project team introductions, welcoming remarks by the town of Scotland, and a formal presentation of the design progress, which will explain the condition of the existing bridge and define the purpose and need, and we'll also present our recommended viable proposal. Please bear in mind, plans are only 30% complete at this point, and this is the time when we come to solicit public input. Following that, we'll have an open forum for any questions you may have. I'll now read the slide on Title VI, Civil Rights. No person shall on the basis of race, color, or national origin be excluded from participation or subject to discrimination in the development of this project. We highly encourage you to fill out the voluntary post-meeting survey located at the QR code shown and at the link below. There's also a link to the department's Office of Equity Title VI page as well. A recording of this presentation will be posted to CTDOT's YouTube channel after the event. The closed captioning, including non-English translation options, are available on Zoom and YouTube. Here's another slide on, I think we overshot the transition on that one, Dan, if you could go back. Here's another slide on Title VI and notice to the public for the Office of Equity. And the same one in Spanish. During the Q&A session, in order to reach out, you can select the Q&A tool at the bottom of the Zoom webinar. The Q&A window will open up on the screen, and then you can type in your question in the text box and click enter. If you are an audio-only participant, please dial *9 to raise and lower your hand. You can also reach out to us by email at dot-flbp@ct.gov, by phone at 860-594-2020, which is a monitored voicemail line, and then through the Zoom Q&A. And we also have provided another link to the project webpage. Now, if you have a question after the Q&A and it comes to you afterward, you can reach out to us until February 6th, but the live Q&A is only available during this event. Funding for this program is through the Federal Local Bridge Programs Design Managed by State, or DMS program. Traditionally, the Federal Local Bridge Program was funded with an 80% federal and a 20% town match for design, rights-of-way, and construction. Under the DMS program, design, rights-of-way, and construction phases are funded with 80% federal and 20% state funds. Design, rights-of-way, and construction are at zero cost to the town. Now, even though the town has tasked the department with performing the design, it is still a full partnership, and we coordinate with the town at key project milestones, such as this. The goals of the DMS program were to provide a streamlined approach to design using full DOT resources, to aid the towns to keep their bridges in a state of good repair by effective use of funds, to decrease typical design time from 48 to 60 months to 24 to 36 months, and when applicable, utilize accelerated bridge construction or ABC techniques to shorten construction duration, and to increase the number of municipal projects delivered to construction each year. Here is the remainder of the department's project team. Bart Sweeney is the division chief of the Bridge and Structures Unit. Derek Lassard is the principal engineer of the Consultant Design Unit. As I stated, I'm Mark Burns, supervising engineer for the local bridge program. Michelle Rame is the project engineer, and Zach Carino is the project coordinator for the Office of Rights of Way. Representing GM2 Associates, who's the department's consultant liaison, are Mike Brady, project manager, and Dan Carnine, project engineer. This slide shows the key structural elements of a bridge. The traveling surface for pedestrians, bicycles, and vehicles is known as the deck. Protecting those travelers from any hazards are the parapets. Supporting the deck and parapets is the bridge superstructure. In the case of this diagram, is steel beams. Supporting the superstructure are the abutments or the substructure. Wing walls will be also present on abutments to act as earth retention. And depending on the span of the bridge, you might see one or more piers. Bridges are rated on a condition rating on a scale of 0 to 1, with 1 to 9, with 9 being in excellent condition and 1 being an imminent failure. Bridges are inspected on a biennial basis by the department. If there was any issue, they would alert the town immediately to make corrective repairs. I'll now turn over to Dana Barrow, Town First Selectman, for some remarks. Dana?
Good evening. Yeah, I'd like to thank people at GM2 for working on the design. I'd like to thank the people at Department of Transportation for all hard work and, expediting this as quickly as possible. And I'd like to thank anybody who's went online. I don't know who might be online. And Jim, and the people, and Wendy and Mike will come to the presentation. Shows interest in this town. And hopefully we'll have a really good outcome of the bridge. It'll get up as quick as we can. And it looks great. From the pictures I saw before, it looks great. The bridge would be great looking, and looks like they're doing a good job engineering it, and it's going to last for a 200 to 500 year flood. And so look forward to seeing it up as quick as we can. Thank you.
Get on to the meeting.
Thank you, Dana.
Okay, we're having trouble. John Beck, he's the budding landowner and the emergency management director. He's having trouble getting on, so I'm not sure.
Oh,
Okay. So I'm not sure what we can do to help him, but
okay, we can look into that.
okay. Send that over the email. I sent you today.
I'll now turn over to Dan Carnine for the formal presentation. Dan?
Thanks, Mark. So my name is Dan Carnine, the project engineer from GM2, here to present, the project specific information tonight. I'll just say before we start getting into it, if anyone has issues accessing the meeting, there is that project webpage link from the notice, and that was sent out to the abutting property owners. That webpage link is portal.ct.gov/DOT Scotland 123-69. So if there is anyone looking for information on how to join, that would be the best place to go right now. So yeah, let's get into the project specific information. So Bridge 4426 is located on Gager Hill Road in the town of Scotland, approximately 0.3 miles west of the intersection with Route 97. This is an aerial view for the site showing the bridge in a mainly rural area with a couple residential properties nearby. We also want to note that there is some agricultural properties located to the south of the bridge. The existing bridge consists of a concrete T-beam superstructure And then at some point over the bridge's lifespan, it was widened with the addition of steel rolled girders. The lower right picture on the screen here shows a cross-section view of the typical bridge, where you can see the original concrete T-beams and then the steel beams that were added on. That superstructure is supported by stone masonry abutments with reinforced concrete caps and wing walls. And the existing span length is 33 feet and the total length is 35 feet. Based on those measurements, the bridge is undersized for the channel, which was measured at 40 feet. And the existing bridge is hydraulically inadequate and does experience flooding during storm events. The bridge also provides 2 lanes of traffic with the 25-foot 9-inch curb to curb width. And we also want to note that there are overhead utilities located upstream from the bridge. The existing roadway is classified as a rural local road with an average daily traffic of 357 vehicles per day. It has a 30-mile-per-hour speed limit, and there are no existing sidewalks at the site. Looking at some of the existing conditions, this is the approach condition, overall in good condition with an overall rating of 6. We want to point out that there is metal guide rail along the north side of the road. And then on the south side there, we only have the wooden posts along the edge of the road. Looking at the superstructure condition, that is rated in poor condition with an overall rating of 4. There is some deterioration in the concrete T-beams, and there's some areas of honeycomb and spall. The steel beams have heavy rust and section loss on the flanges and the base of the web at both abutments. And then at the rest of the steel beams, more towards the middle of the span, just have light to moderate rust throughout. Here's some pictures of the typical superstructure condition. Starting on the left, we have pictures of the fascia beams. So the outside beams and at the abutments. So top is at abutment 1, bottom is at abutment 2. And you can see that heavy rust and section loss resulting in that poor condition rating. The top right picture shows that light to moderate rust throughout the rest of the steel beams. And then the bottom right is one of those areas of spall in the concrete T-beams. The existing substructure is rated in fairly good condition overall with a rating of 6, with some cracks in the mortar joints and some missing mortar areas and voids in between some of the existing stones. The channel and scour conditions at the bridge are in fair condition overall with a rating of 5. There is some minor scour located at the center of the channel. In addition to that, there is a scour wall at the bridge that is exposed and undermined up to 12 inches. And GM2 did recently confirm that scour activity and these channel and scour ratings based off of our own site visits and scour analysis. So taking that existing information into consideration, the purpose of this project will be to address the structural deterioration, provide a resilient replacement structure. The need for this is we need to replace the deteriorated superstructure of the existing bridge, and we need to improve the existing bridge hydraulic condition. So this project will propose a full bridge replacement. The new structure will be composed of precast concrete box beam superstructure supported by reinforced concrete semi-integral abutments that are founded on piles. The new bridge will have a much larger clear span of 48 feet and be oriented on a 30-degree skew. So basically it will be angled to match the existing channel. The top side, the bridge will have a 27-foot curb to curb width that will accommodate 2 lanes of traffic. Those lanes will be 10 feet wide, and then the shoulders would vary over the structure. The shoulder widths will vary over the structure because the bridge will need to accommodate the horizontal curve of the roadway. We'll get into that in a couple of the slides coming up. Some other features of the proposed bridge: we will have open bridge rail on the top, simulated stone masonry on all the exposed substructure elements, guide rail that meets the current safety standards, and a dry hydrant. The proposed bridge will also improve the hydraulic conditions. So like I said before, we are proposing a 48-foot clear span, which is significantly larger than the existing 33-foot span. The resulting proposed bridge will have a roadway that will not overtop during a 100-year storm event, whereas the existing bridge overtops during that same storm. So we are eliminating that flooding condition during storm events. As part of our design, this bridge will also be designed for scour conditions at the 200 and 500-year storm, and the proposed bridge actually has no calculated scour for those storm events, meaning we don't anticipate any erosion occurring during those severe storms. And if that weren't enough, we are also proposing additional bank stabilization and piles for just added resiliency. So as Dana said, this bridge will be designed for 200, 500-year storms and won't be going anywhere. This is the proposed bridge cross section. So looking at, this is a typical section. Looking at the bottom, we have the proposed concrete astro box beams. On top of that is a concrete deck. And then on top of that is the 3 inches of bituminous concrete pavement. On both sides of the superstructure, we'll have that open metal bridge rail. From this view, you can also see 27-foot curb to curb width between those two open bridge rails. That'll accommodate the 10-foot travel lane, 1 lane in each direction, and then the 2-foot minimum shoulders that'll vary. This is the elevation view. So starting on top, we have that open metal bridge rail on top of the superstructure, which is in orange there. So that superstructure is that concrete deck and the concrete box beams. That superstructure and open bridge rail are being supported by the substructure elements shown in that pink color. This exposed substructure elements will be treated with concrete form liner for the simulated stone masonry appearance. The semi-integral abutments can be seen on both sides here, and those are being supported by pile foundations. Under the bridge, you can see we are proposing embankment protection on both sides, and that embankment protection will be covered with natural stream bed material. This is our proposed roadway plan. So we're looking down over the site. We have our bridge in the center in orange. And you can see we are matching the existing horizontal alignment of Gager Hill Road as closely as possible. This was done to reduce impacts to the abutting properties. So because we're matching the existing horizontal alignment, we will need to match the existing curves and the cross slopes of the existing road. So that's where you can see the roadway curving over the bridge, resulting in those varying shoulder widths on both sides there. Overall, the project limits are 420 feet long with approximately 250 feet of full depth roadway reconstruction. That full depth roadway reconstruction is shown on the slide here in the yellow areas. And then we will also be replacing all the existing metal beam rail and wood posts within the project limits with new metal beam rail that meets the latest safety standards. So Gager Hill Road will be closed during construction and utilize a 3.8 mile long detour. That detour would consist of Route 97, Plains Road, and Bass Road. So as many of you may know, Bridge 4772 is located along this route, and that is Bass Road, which is currently closed. That bridge will be replaced under a separate federal local bridge program project. And we are proposing to perform work on Gager Hill Road, Bridge 4426, once Bass Road is open to traffic. We are proposing that to limit disruptions to the public. Permit-wise, we do anticipate getting all the necessary environmental permits for this project, including a Scotland Inland Wetlands permit and the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers general permit for the state of Connecticut, which includes the self-verification form. We would like to note that we are not located in the FEMA flood zone, so we have no flood management certification required, which we just wanted to point out because that's a little less permitting effort and will help accelerate design a little bit. So we also have anticipated property impacts. Those property impacts are mainly in the form of temporary construction easements. Those easements would be from 3 of the abutting properties. We have 2 on the upstream side or the north side, and then 1 on the south side. Those temporary construction easements are mainly for contractor access to the channel, so the contractor can get down there, install their water handling devices, perform excavation and grading as needed. In addition to that, there is a small easement to slope for the support and safety of the highway located on that northwest corner, where we just need that area to do the proposed final grading. The impacts shown here are based on preliminary plans, so what's presented tonight is subject to change as design progresses. So overall, construction is anticipated to start in 2027, which that start date is subject to rights of way and permit approvals, as well as the proposed construction start after Bass Road project. So Bass Road would have to be substantially complete, where traffic is back on Bass Road, and then we would like to start Gager Hill Road. And then construction duration, once it does start, is 6 to 8 months, or 1 construction season, which is from April into November. The construction cost is estimated to be $2,691,000, which would be covered by 80% federal funds and 20% state funds, and at no cost to the town. So at this time, I'd like to turn it over to Zach Guarino from the Connecticut DOT to talk about the rights of way process.
Thanks, Dan. Again, my name is Zach Guarino. I'm a project coordinator with the department's Division of Rights of Way. Our office is responsible for acquiring the property rights needed for transportation projects. And as Dan mentioned in the presentation, this project will require the acquisition of property rights. So I'd like to give a brief overview of our acquisition process. Before we begin, again, I'd like to mention that the specific impacts may change as the design progresses, and that any required property rights will be acquired in accordance with Connecticut General Statute, sections 13A73 and 13A98E, as well as the Uniform Act. And as Dan had mentioned, those temporary construction easements will be extinguished at the end of the project. Go ahead and change this slide. So the right-of-way acquisition process begins once the design has progressed to a development milestone and all the impacts have been determined. At this point, each affected property owner will receive a formal letter of intent to acquire from our office, along with a property map which depicts the exact property rights to be acquired. So on the screen here is an example of a property map that an owner may receive. It's going to show the existing conditions as well as the proposed acquisitions and improvements to the property. Then our office will determine the fair market value of the property rights which were depicted on that map and use it to establish an offer of just compensation. That offer will be sent out to the property owner in writing, and a right-of-way agent will be available to meet with the property owner and explain the project, go over the specific impacts to their property, and explain how the state arrived at its offer. The property owner will have a reasonable amount of time, typically 30 days, to consider the state's offer and enter into negotiations. When an agreement is reached, the department will prepare all the necessary paperwork to record the deed and property map on the town land records. However, if an agreement cannot be reached, in order to keep on schedule, the department may acquire the necessary property rights through its power of eminent domain. In that event, the state files a notice of condemnation in the Superior Court, along with a monetary deposit in the amount of the state's offer. The owner would have 6 months from that date to file an appeal if they felt that the state's offer was inadequate. Whether or not the owner chooses to appeal, the money deposited in the court is available to be withdrawn by the owner. And it's important to note that the state only acquires property rights that are needed for this specific project. For any questions regarding the right-of-way acquisition process, I can answer them after this presentation in the Q&A, which we'll be moving to next. I'm going to hand over to Michelle. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone, for that great presentation. We're now moving on to the live Q&A portion of the presentation. I'll just let you know that the comment period is open through February 6th of 2025. You can send us your questions now through our live chat or by email at dot-flbp@ct.gov. You can send us by phone at 860-594-2020 and leave us a voicemail. In your voicemail, please reference the project number 0123-0069. Or like I said, on Zoom right now with us live.
A quick question. I know you do this thing with right of way and you do the deeded right of way. So what happens at the construction done? Do you just give that deed back to the property owner, or how's that work?
Yep. So this is Zach Carmino from Rights of Way. So it just depends on what we acquired. So for the example of the construction easements that Dan had pointed out, mostly for construction access, that's something that actually, as part of the process, we'll acquire the easement and we'll actually release it. So it doesn't just extinguish automatically. We file an affidavit after the project is completed and release the easement. The easement for the slope for the highway, that's a permanent easement, so that would remain on the property, but the other easement will be released after the project's completed. And the property owner will still own the land. They still own the underlying fee for both easements. But one of them, the slope easement, will be permanent. You're muted, Dan, if you're trying to follow up.
Hey, Dana, I don't know if you wanted a follow-up question, but you were muted there.
So
Yep.
the sloping, I mean, you mean just being the sloping away from the dirt away from the roadbed, right?
Yeah, essentially, and it would be for the support of the overall structure and the bridge. So that's essentially what the easement's there for, just so that eventually this easement would actually be transferred over to the town, and it's really just so that they can maintain the slope for the support and the safety of the bridge and the roadway. So it just gives you the town the access to be able to come on the property to maintain that slope.
Wait, thank you.
Thanks, Zach. We have no further questions at this moment, so we'll give it a few more minutes to see if anybody has anything else. I'm going to post a link to our voluntary survey in the chat, as well as a link to our project webpage in the chat too for your use, where you can access a posting of this video presentation at the end from YouTube, and any information from the project will get posted and updated on that webpage as well.
The
Again,
other
just to-
main landowner, John Beck, yeah, apparently he was able to get online, so he's the one that has a farm right next to it too. So I got two of the major abutters with us.
Good.
And again, just to reiterate, if you can't think of any questions tonight, but you think of questions later on, the comment period is open until February 6th. And you can send your questions to our email at dot-flbp@ct.gov or by phone at 860-594-2020. And just remember to reference the project number in your voicemail. Oh, Dana asked, how will this affect the pond?
Yeah, so I don't know if that came from Dana or maybe someone with Dana's link, but that came in through the chat. But that being said, you know, as far as okay, yep, So how will that affect our pond? I'll start with this one. Honestly, the best slide would be probably this rights of way slide. So as part of this project, we are aware of that pond on the upstream side. And it was taken into consideration. And we did everything we could to avoid impacting that. We do anticipate not impacting the pond at all, but as design progresses, we will constantly reevaluate that to make sure that our excavation doesn't impact that and make sure we're not negatively affecting it at all.
Thanks, Dan. Thanks for the question, John. Oh, I see he used Dana's link to come in. Okay, with the host link. Okay, perfect.
Yes, he couldn't get on before. So while he was trying to get on, I sent him the email to you, to him so he could get on.
We'll just give this one more minute for anybody who might have any last minute questions, and then we'll wrap this up.
The only other comment, be welcome to start in 2016, the Bass Road Bridge. In 2026, you're welcome to start a little bit earlier, people are anxious to get the bridge done.
We're doing what we can to accelerate that
I
schedule.
appreciate it.
Yeah. Yeah, and just
We, John,
Bass Road is on this detour route, and that is our priority over Gager Hill Road, obviously, with the current closure on Bass Road. So we are focused on 4772 and get that one out as soon as possible.
John
yeah,
asked,
Oh, go ahead, Michelle. Sorry.
sorry to interrupt you. John asked if the road will be raised any higher.
Yeah, I can answer that.
Thanks, Dan.
So this is that roadway plan looking down at this site. And because we're going with a little bit of a longer span length for the proposed bridge, we're widening up that span. That's going to cause our beams and the actual bridge structure to be a little bit deeper. And there will be a slight raise to the profile. So it'll be slightly increased, but most of that increase can be with and kind of the new embankments that are associated with that raise are shown here in that green area, and most of that falls within the street line. The only place where it goes outside the street line is where we have those slopes that extend beyond the street line is where we have that easement to slope. So to answer your question, yes, the road will be raised slightly, but not too much.
Thanks, Dan. He asked to further that question if it will affect their driveway.
So I guess I'll just answer there's the two main properties and access for the properties on there's one on each side of the bridge, I think kind of the Beck property it would be to the west side. We do propose our project to end just before that that driveway, so there should be access throughout construction. And the owner, anyone going onto the property would have to utilize the detour. On the other side, there is that other property, and it looks like an access driveway. On the other side, we also anticipate maintaining access to that as needed, and during construction, there will have to be coordination between the contractor and the property owners near the site as well.
Thanks, Dan.
Dana, just out of curiosity, how many people are in person with you tonight?
3 other people.
3 other people. Thank you.
How many you got online?
3.
Yep.
3, but one says news 8, so I'm not sure how many that could be.
Michelle, looks like we got another question in the webinar chat.
Yes, John asked, will the rain runoff go into our driveway after completion?
Yeah, I can speak to that. So, despite the raise in the profile or the roadway, we wanted to match the existing drainage conditions as much as possible. So we do not anticipate additional flow going into the driveway. So what you see out there today of the kind of the country drainage, we'll call it, or the curbless drainage or the sheet flow, we're going to maintain that existing condition. But yeah, we don't anticipate additional runoff to go into the driveways near the site.
John, thanks you for your responses.
Anytime.
Perfect. Okay, for anybody else left out there, just to reiterate again, if you have any questions, the comment period is open until February 6th. You can send us your questions at dot-flbp@ct.gov or send us a voicemail by phone at 860-594-2020. Please reference the project number 0123-0069 in your voicemail. Thank you for joining us, and we hope you all have a great night. Take care.
Take care. Thank you.
Thank you.
Take care, everybody. Appreciate it.
You, thanks.